Today I'm bringing you on one of Northern Ireland's most underrated, understated walks, and it's right here outside Belfast. A hidden gem, the North Down Coastal Path in County Down offers miles and miles of stunning views of Belfast Lough. But there's so much more. Along this rugged pathway, I'll take you through the beautiful sandy beaches and parks, past quiet coves and stunning woodland. And we'll discover how this path played its part defending Northern Ireland during the two World Wars. And this is where the pathway begins. Welcome to Holywood in County Down, and just under the little trainway bridge leads us straight onto the path, and that's where we begin our 10-mile trip along the North Down coast. So this coastal path the whole way round can take up to 4 hours to walk. So that would be 8 hours to come back again. So the good call is always to walk one direction, and the train line basically hugs the path the whole way around the coast and get the train back, yeah?
Yeah, we're only about 15 minutes in and I'm knackered already.
Now this path is part of a longer 16-mile stretch that leads the whole way from the Titanic in Belfast right through the stretch we're doing, which is about 10 miles, and then on round past Bangor, beyond where we'll be finishing up today, and on round to the county downtown of Donegal. So about 16 miles in totality. Now the first little stop you're going to come to along the path is arguably going to be the busiest part as well, and it's right here at Sea Park. It's a great place, not just for the kids to play in the park, which I'm old enough to remember it now into its third or fourth reincarnation of the play park here, so it shows you how long I've been coming here. But it's also just a great place to have a picnic, to relax with family and friends. And of course you've got the planes landing in the nearby Belfast City Airport, just about 2 miles up the path, back up the path towards Belfast again. So it's a great place to come and even do a spot of plane watching as well. There's also a good car park here at Sea Park too. So if you don't want to do the path, but you just want to come down to this little section, you can park the car. There's always plenty of spaces around. There's nearby tennis courts as well. And there's always a little ice cream van and a coffee van down here as well. And if you are doing the path, it's always a good idea to stop here. If it is here, it's not always here, but the days it is here and open, grab some water and snacks, because this will be your last chance to grab refreshments until quite a bit along the path, until at least Crawfordsburn. You know why I'm always saying we don't take freebies on the channel? This was all free. The guy at the coffee and ice cream van, so I said I would give him a shout out to
What's his name?
fan of the channel. I didn't get his name. I should have asked his name, but thanks to him anyway. I said I'd give him a shout out on the channel. He has little stands just like that at Stormont, which we were going to go to today, and he said don't go to the Stormont at the weekend, it's rammed and you can't even get parked. Here's quite busy, but it's because of the weather more today. And he also has an ice cream van at the Zoo, Belfast Zoo as well. So make sure you look out for these guys if you are around, and maybe you mention my name and you get like Stuart 10 discount code on your flat whites and your ice creams. Well, it was very kind of him, so thank you, and do drop by and see him.
I'm glad I sent you now instead of me.
Yeah, I know you would never get that kind of VIP treatment.
It's a joke, I don't understand.
Here it again. Another big one. A wee one. A wee one. A wee one. Like that. A wee one. No. All right. The path the whole way round is mostly flat, although it is tricky on a few occasions, more so if you're with a pram like we are today. There's a parts of it are a little bit of an incline and a little bit rocky, and some of it can get kind of quite narrow. Of course, on a stormy day, well, this tide is prone to coming right up over the path, so I wouldn't advise it on those days. And even on a day like today, where the tide has been in, there's a lot of sand still around the path, and that can make it difficult if you are with a buggy. There are these little signs around the coastal path, tells you where you're at. We're at Cultra. This is arguably one of the most affluent places in Northern Ireland, famously known as our Gold Coast. Well, it can, on an evening like this evening, have this beautiful golden Belfast Lough where you can watch the planes and the ferries. The sea's relatively calm, but the big attraction is actually on the other side of the road, because that's where some of Northern Ireland's most rich and prosperous housing is.
Whoever lives in there, your house is beautiful. Hope you're watching our video.
That's like a proper beach house. It doesn't look right in Northern Ireland, that one, does it? It doesn't look like it's from here. It's something you would see maybe New England or Key West or somewhere in the States like
Still
that.
pretty impressive.
Lovely.
Still gorgeous.
Looks like there's a plot here where you could build maybe a little house there.
Yeah, a little one.
To own a house here, it's probably not even people like on huge amounts of money. It's people who maybe had money passed down through them, or it's hard to know what do you do to own a house like this.
Yeah, it's probably inherited, to be fair.
I think, and there is, this area of Northern Ireland is known for a lot of kind of family money that has been passed down through the generations. And of course, whilst this is one of the most affluent places you can be now, back in the day, well, it probably wasn't this quite as exclusive as it is now. Even that would do me.
Gorgeous.
That one there.
Big window.
Lovely.
I mean, they have a Porsche in their driveway, so they're doing all right.
Didn't even notice that. Trust you to notice that. Here in Cultra, they've got this beautiful yacht club, of course, members only. You can imagine how much a membership needs to be sitting in here in the afternoon enjoying nice food, beverages.
I think you have to enjoy like going on a boat.
I would say a lot of people in here don't even, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Cultra also runs along the back of the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum as well. And if you're interested in finding out more about the Ulster Folk and Transport Museum, there's 2 videos on this channel that you can check out our day at both those museums. And this path runs right along the back of it. Although I think you can now maybe also get up into the Transport Museum from down here on the path as well.
Right.
Yeah, right here you can walk up to the Transport Museum and then a little bit further to the Folk Park, but both museums are a day out in themselves, so although you can access them from the path, it's probably not something you're going to do if all you're interested in is walking the length of this path, because, well, you're probably not going to have enough time to get your money's worth, but they are definitely worth checking out. Yeah. That's for these big swanky houses we've been looking at and checking out along this path. This is BT 18, and whilst BT 9 is sometimes regarded the most posh parts of Northern Ireland, it's actually BT 18 where the real money is. The average price of a house in Cultra will set you back £750,000 to £1 million, £750,000 to £1 million. But most of these big beach houses we see along this path, well, if you do fancy living in some of them, you need to set aside somewhere between 3 and 5 million. Most of the path the whole way around is car free, although there are parts of it are open to cars where there's some housing, but to be honest with you, that's very little. Although typically this place is just full of people really out for a stroll. It is busier on weekends when the weather is good, and a lot of dog walkers as well, so do mind your step because not all of them bring a bag with them. And also look out for the cyclists. This is a popular little route, maybe not the whole way, but for a portion of this route for people on bikes and mountain bikers as well, who tend to rush past you sometimes, so do take care. And on the grand scheme of things, this is a pretty short walk, but it sometimes feels longer because the vibe, I suppose, the terrain does change quite a bit from starting out to where you will end this walk in Bangor. The pathway itself offers views of course, the rocky shores and the sandy beaches, but there is a lot of little quiet coves, country parks, and some spectacular woodland areas along the way as well. So there's plenty on the other side of the path to keep it interesting whilst you get these breathtaking views of Belfast Lough. This bit always reminds me of kind of the pterodactyl cage that you enter in Jurassic Park. The reason why this is here is just to protect people walking past from being hit in the head with a golf ball. The Royal Belfast Golf Club is just over the wall. Bumpity bumpity bump. I think what I said earlier about bringing prams or buggies along here, very small portions of the path are acceptable, but a lot of it actually, it's not the one. But you can see right where we're at now, somewhere between Cultra and Seahill, this is kind of probably as rocky and as high of incline the path gets. Not only is it very bumpy and steep at this particular section, but it's very, very steep the whole way down there into the sea. Yeah, I think at this point it's actually easier to get out of the buggy and just walk. It's not...
Just reading it, you know,
Why?
because you brought us here, you said, this is the nice wee walk.
This small little sort of 5-minute section of the path does cut across a bit of a hill, and it's very rocky, so some point during the hundreds of years of history of this path, this little bit that we're on now has kind of been chiseled through the cliffside to make the path passable. Next, you're going to come to these big wooden gates behind me. Now, unfortunately, they've remained shut since COVID with no sign of reopening. They reckon they need £3 million worth of investment to get the Grey Point Fort Museum back open again. You can still take a walk around the perimeter and, of course, find out a little bit about the history and the significance of this site in relation to World War I and World War II, and how this particular spot on the North Down coast played its part during the wars. Now, the fort itself was completed in 1907, and at its heart these two massive 6-inch diameter guns which commanded the entrance into Belfast Lough, a key part of Belfast's defences of the time against naval attack. And you can see these two magnificent 23 feet long guns are still here today, and these could shoot miles out into Belfast Lough. You can see there's still a lot of signage around the perimeter here where you can learn some of the history of this wee site, and the gun battery transformed into a huge bustling military camp during the First World War, expanding itself to become accommodation for hundreds of soldiers who were then stationed here. In World War II, this spot served as Northern Ireland's coastal defence headquarters, coordinating anti-invasion efforts amid fears of German U-boat and airborne assaults on Belfast. And you can see why this spot was picked as the vantage point to protect Belfast during that period. This little indent of land that creeps out into Belfast Lough is a brilliant little vantage point to have, and you can pretty much see the whole way up and down all of Belfast Lough from this particular vantage point. You can see this little kind of concrete, well, looks like a jail or a prison cell that's here today. I'm not sure exactly what it's used for, but I think as part of the fort it is closed up and not used for what it normally would be. Maybe it's a bit of a lookout spot or whatever, but this little bunker looks like it's seen better days itself. And it's such a shame all this now sits here today completely deserted, abandoned. And particularly when you consider the fort itself, when open, is regarded as one of the best preserved of its kind anywhere in the British Isles. It just seems like a missed trick to not have this little stop off along the North Down coastal path actually open for people to come in and just take in some of the history and look at some of these amazing relics and artifacts that they actually have in here. Such a shame. What they do still have though is this huge car park just off some of the side roads in Helens Bay that you can actually drive into. It's still open, and the car park then can provide a bit of a vantage point for the North Down coastal path just down through the lane beyond there, and you can access the path at least that way. And it means if you don't want to do that whole Holywood to Bangor stretch of the path and you want to break it up, this right here is pretty much the halfway point. So you just want to start off gently and kind of build up to longer walks. This is a good place to either stop and head up to the Helens Bay train station or continue on down the path towards Bangor, and that's where we're going to next. Well, next along the path you'll come to Helens Bay, a beautiful quaint little village situated here on the North County Down coast. Now, while 2,000 people actually live up in the town, and there's a few little shops, a train station, but mostly again more in the way of affluent, quite expensively priced housing, the main attraction in Helens Bay is actually right down here on the beach. It's one of the closest places to Belfast that has a nice sandy shoreline, at least a little bit of it too. And whilst today it's not much to look at, during the summer on a really good day, this beach will be clouded with people from, well, essentially not from here, down here. You hope with the kids and behaving themselves, but very often Helens Bay is in the news for all the wrong reasons, and what this little bit of sandy beach so close to Belfast and on the Belfast train line brings into this village. I think it's fair to say the locals don't always appreciate the little boost of tourism they get over those week or two in the summer down here. And there have been efforts in recent years to try to keep away kids and young people from coming down here and drinking and setting fires on this beach. But it is a beautiful little golden strand. I'm trying to figure out what the environmental project is. It's one of these times where I'm maybe just being stupid here. Is it, what is it? Is it like a barbecue? Is it seats? Is it beehives? I have no idea. Someone will tell me in the comments, I'm sure. Down around here, there's a few little bits where you can come off the beaten track if you wish. Just be careful again, because some of these rocks are straight over into the sea, which is not somewhere you want to end up, but you can veer off the main path and go down for some really brisk, fresh Northern Irish sea air. Well, from this vantage point, Helens Bay, we can now see Bangor in the distance. That's our final destination on this video today. We'll be making our way on around there soon. But also out there today, I can see the Coupland Islands just off the coast of Donegal. They're very clear. But there's also parts of Scotland very clear today on the horizon out there too. And of course, back this way, well, you're looking out towards Blackhead. You can see just that little white dot in the distance is the Blackhead Lighthouse just past Whitehead. And then you can see, well, of course, the monstrosity, it's Kilroot Power Station just past Carrickfergus. I'm not sure who Sylvia was. Brian Faulkner, the 6th and final Prime Minister of Northern Ireland, was actually from here in Helens Bay. And it just says, all we know about Sylvia is she was born in 1948, died, I want to say 2013, and it says Sylvia Leaper, she loved this view. So next along the path, you're going to come to the village of Crawfordsburn. It's probably one of the most quaint, quiet little idyllic villages anywhere in Northern Ireland. It really feels like a place that time forgot in. It's beautiful down here. But along with the beach, and it has another beautiful beach that brings people down here over the summer in their, well, again, in larger numbers than the locals would maybe wish. But it's really the country park that's the famous attraction down here. It's got acres and acres of beautiful woodland, lots of country walks. There's also a scout centre up here. There's a welcome centre, a little cafe and restaurant. There are some public toilets and amenities too. And believe it or not, and I'm not going to say it on this walk because it's buried up at the back of the country park, quite hidden actually to the extent where most people don't even believe it's a real thing. But there is actually a really cool waterfall in here as well, which is worth checking out if you ever find yourself at Crawfordsburn Country Park. Well, there's not many days of the year would be considered beach days in Northern Ireland, but the one good thing about the weather never being that great is most of the year you'll have beautiful spaces like this, largely to yourself. Where there's a lot of seaweed thrown up in this little bit of the beach, it's weirdly brought with it hundreds of golf balls. Now, there is a golf course nearby, so it's obviously got tangled up in all this seaweed. So if those are worth anything, right now, here, there's hundreds of these balls that have washed up the whole way along this bit of beach. Now, if you ever do find yourself veering off the path up into Crawfordsburn village, I'd highly recommend it. Lots of little coffee shops up there to get you in and out of the cold for a while, especially on a winter's day like today. But one of the most recognisable things you'll find in the village, among all those beautiful little thatched cottages, is the old inn at Crawfordsburn. It lays claim to being Ireland's oldest inn, used by roadmen and highwaymen back in the day, as far back as 1640. Well, today the inn still has all its vintage charm, but it also has recently added on a really beautiful thermal spa out the back, the treetop spa it's called, just above these treetops here. In fact, we visited last year and there's a video on this channel if you want to have a look. Now, in the summer, the line for this little ice cream van that usually parks up in this spot can sometimes be 50 to 100 deep. It is so busy down here, but as you can see, this time of year, I can't imagine we're doing much trade today. Just here beside the ice cream van, you're going to cross this little bridge over the river, and this is one of the few points you'll actually have a decision to make. Do you want to continue up into Crawfordsburn Country Park this way, or do you want to keep going around the coast this way, which is where we're headed? So just as you leave Crawfordsburn, we come to the one and only part on this whole pathway, which isn't always passable. When the tide's in or on a stormy day, the water's going to be right up here on this little bit of beach that I'm at, and you're not going to be able to get past unless you kind of cut up through the country park or some of the trails. But it is literally just like a very small distance from right here to where the path picks up again over here. Why they haven't actually filled this little bit in is a bit of a mystery to me, where it feels like they could have put something down here or used some of this shrubbery wasteland here to kind of put a little bit of a path through, but this one is just kind of left to the elements. Again, if anybody knows in the comments what this is, I'd love to know. It's locked, but it would feel like it could be like somewhere to put boats, but as you can see from this angle, there's nowhere to take your boat off. There's no slipway here. And maybe there was once upon a time, but it feels like this is kind of relatively well maintained. I'm on a little metal platform here. The paint's up to spec on the doors and the railings. It looks like a World War bunker, maybe, of some sort, but I've got a feeling there's something in there and it's still being used to this day, but I have no idea. Yeah, in the comments, if you've any idea what that is or was, I'd appreciate it. And the same if you've spotted anything else on the video that might be of interest that I've kind of skimmed past or haven't spotted, do also let me know in the comments. Okay, further on around the corner, we're Bangor bound. As I mentioned earlier, the Belfast to Bangor train line pretty much hugs this pathway the whole way round. So every mile or two, there is a train station. So you can opt out of the path, work your way back up onto the train track and take the train back in the Belfast direction. And before we come to Bangor, we'll come to the outskirts of Bangor where there's another housing area and a train stop if you want to stop there, although it seems if you've made it that far, you might as well keep going as we're going to do today. I've mentioned some of the great houses you see along this little pathway, but this one here has to be one of the most intriguing because it looks like a beautiful little cottage bungalow, but instead of taking advantage of this incredible, primary real estate and sea view they've got this interesting kind of fort wall built the whole way around the property. Now, I gather that's, your choice if you want, peace and quiet and people not coming past with YouTube videos and, leering in your window. But by the same token, it feels just really odd that this wall goes the whole way round the house when you've got like literally $1 million views on your doorstep. If anybody knows the history of that little house, and it's been there again for as long as I ever remember, maybe they're not the social type, or again, maybe there's another reason. Could be that that wall is doing something from maybe a health and safety point of view and protecting the house or the home from the waves that maybe come over here. But it doesn't feel like it's that close for that sort of thing or any subsiding or what have you. So it's an interesting little talking point as you make your way around the path towards Bangor. Along this part of the path at Bangor West, you can see all these little cobbled walls, and you can tell that each one of these used to be somebody's little beachside home right down here. It looks like many, many years ago. This space is just lying derelict now, but you can still see the little pathways into the front of these houses. This little body of water right here is called Smelt Mill Bay, and actually the history in this little bit of land goes back to the 6th century. There's a sign that marks the spot, and it tells you that it's a throwback to the old lead smelt mill which once operated here. It doesn't feel this beach here is sufficient enough to warrant its own sign. This is Brompton Beach. It looks very small. Now, it could well be that the tide just happens to be in. I don't recall any kind of bigger strand down this part of the coast close to Bangor, but I'll take you on over and you can have a look. There's a little vantage point that goes out on the rocks, out into the sea a bit. It gives you some nice views looking back in towards the cliff sides and the waves. apparently this is popular with sea swimmers and people who like diving in and jumping in here. Now, apart from the fact that I never think it's very safe, and I usually keep a good distance from these kind of exposed coasts where I can, but having smelt what I just smelt walking over one of the little streams about half a mile back, the last place I'd recommend anybody goes into is Belfast Lough. Can be pretty to look at sometimes, but the swim around and all that seaweed and God knows what else. Well, Google doesn't know and I don't know, but there is this tower up on the cliffside here, and I don't actually know what it's for or when it dates back to. And it is a part of a longer kind of what would look like, only but Bangor is not a walled town, would be like a kind of an old wall of that kind of Norman period that you would maybe see around some of the towns across Northern Ireland, but this isn't one of them, so it leads me to wonder what it actually is. And I think there is a light on up there too. Does someone live there? Or and also it looks to be here a little creepy keep right on the shoreline too. Oh, I'll go up here, have a look. And it is just that, a little creepy keep to nowhere. It's locked. Well, as I make my final approach into Bangor, I'm now chasing daylight, as you can see, and that's something to keep in mind. If you're doing this entire route of the coastal path, you're going to need to allow a full day with breaks along the way, especially if you're doing it with kids, with families, pets even, but particularly if you're doing it in the winter or autumn months. Of course, it gets dark quite early in Northern Ireland, 4:30. There is no light, so that's why you don't want to be down here when it gets dark, that's for sure, something to keep in mind. Now, as we approach this part of the walk, you can see that Belfast Lough kind of opens up the mouth into the Irish Sea right now. And this is really where Belfast Lough's at its widest and arguably its most ferocious. You can see the waves are coming up over the rocks now. And it hasn't actually even been an overly windy or stormy day at all, to be honest. It's been quite calm today, but it's still very choppy down here. At this point, to the other side of the lough, it's going to be about 5 miles. Well, for the first time, I can see the finish line in the distance. Bangor County down. You can see some nice little colourful houses along the seafront there. And certainly my feet will be glad to get to Bangor and get back on the train up the road to Belfast. But actually, my bladder will be even more thankful. Something to keep in mind is that toilet stops are few and far between along this path. So you're going to have to want to, well, think about that. You will get a stop there at Crawfordsburn. There's toilets at the Country Park and also the museums in Cultra, but other than that, you're on your own. Skipping Stone Beach, right here. Not an amazing golden strand, but maybe more fun if you're a golden retriever. And if you've ever wondered where the path ultimately brings you out, it's right here at the, well, locally it'll be quite famous, the Picky Park in Bangor. And this map here shows you pretty much the journey we've made. So we're here in Bangor, we've been through Crawfordsburn, we showed you Grey Point and Helens Bay, and the museums, of course, we went past in Cultra, and of course Sea Park where we were at the start, and we began in Holywood. So you can see the entire path as it goes the whole way around, and it also has it out for you in miles and kilometres as well. Now, although we're going to stop here, you can see the path does continue. It gets a little bit rugged on around this sort of final leg, and there's no train station here either, so that's why we're going to call it a day. Bangor is now considered a city. That would make a lot of local people chuckle, I guess, because, well, there are 50,000 people live here. It's a huge town outside Belfast, but it doesn't really feel like it's a city. In fact, quite the opposite. Bangor suffered from regeneration issues, particularly here along the seafront, for many, many years. And what used to be back in its heyday, a thriving Northern Ireland seaside location, these days, certainly down at this part of the town, it feels like it's a shadow of its former self. But it does still have its famous Picky Fun Park, and on summer days and good days down here is a good wee spot for the kids. Of course, the famous Bangor swans are over there. And then in here they've got throughout the year other little things along with the trainway, the miniature trainway. There's like a little water station that the kids can play around with in there too, and some other bits and pieces. And of course they can have ice creams and snacks by the seaside here as well. I've just wandered into an unexpected obstacle here. This part of the walkway is closed. This is usually where the car park is, and it looks like they've dug it all up, and this little section the whole way kind of down to the town centre is closed off. You can't just walk around this way, it's not a problem. And now, having just said all that, the regeneration has finally begun. Since the 1990s it's been in the works, and actually it looks now that the £60 million project that's earmarked for here down at the seafront has started. This was of course the car park. Well, that will no longer be the car park anymore. This is going to be completely repedestrianised and rebranded to the Marine Gardens. Very much going to be a hub down here on the seafront in Bangor for locals to enjoy. So work has at long last begun, certainly on this side of the town. Over on the other side, not so much. Still a lot of these buildings lying completely empty, and this space over here where there used to be buildings years ago has now been lying empty as long as I can remember. So it is promising to see at least the start over here of hopefully better fortunes for Bangor. Well, among all the change down here, my key clock will not change. It's standing firm there. You can see the Marine Gardens will be built around my key clock, which has been here at the cost of £200 back in 1916 ever since. Well, this is it, the end of the line, Bangor Marina. Now, whilst I say it's the end of the line, it's the end of the train line, and it's the end of our journey together along this stretch of the North Down coastal path. But if you do want to take it to extremes, you can actually follow the path on round through Ballyholme, through Grimsport, and it actually doesn't end until Donegal. Now that's going to add another 2 or 3 miles onto the route, and I have to say it's probably the most rugged part of this walk as well. There's not really any concreted paths. You're going to be on the beach for quite a bit, and even up through vines as well. And of course there's no train station further down, so you'll have to walk back on yourself if you want to catch the train back to Belfast. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Hopefully you've learned a few bits and pieces about this walk that you never knew before. Some people didn't even know it existed, and that you could actually take the path the whole way from Holywood as we did. I would advise you to plan ahead. On the surface, it seems like a bit of a stroll by the sea, a few miles around the coast. And it is that, and it is on flat ground, but it's long. Yes, you're not climbing up a mountain. There's some difficult bits of terrain, but certainly it can take its toll. It's a fair wee dander. You're completely exposed to the elements of the sea the whole way round. So if the weather's not great, you're going to have waves crashing over as well. So it's probably not a good idea to be coming down in that sort of weather at all. And lighting's another thing to consider as well. As I mentioned, it is now beginning to get dark here. That path is completely unlit around most of it. You don't want to be caught out there after sunset. You'll also want to probably pack a lunch or some snacks along the way, and bottled water is a good idea as well. As I mentioned, it can take 4 to 5 hours at a decent pace, and then you're adding in some stops, or if you want to see any of the points of interest along the way, you really would see yourself setting off in the morning and probably finishing off sort of mid to late afternoon. But this pathway certainly has it all on the way round from Holywood. You can boat watch, plane watch, even bird watch as well, take in the beautiful fresh coastal air, and of course you've got museums and points of interest along the way to take in also. Right, we're tired, knackered and hungry and headed that way to catch the train from Bangor back to Holywood. Thanks as always for watching. If you've picked up anything on this video that I didn't have immediate knowledge of or missed, do leave that in the comments. Maybe you're local to the area and you know a little bit more info than even I do. We'd love to read that. And also, if you've any suggestions on where we should stroll next, preferably not up a hill, but maybe somewhere flat, maybe somewhere along the sea or somewhere else. Where's your favourite place to go for a walk in Northern Ireland? And again, maybe not as long as this one. Please leave that in the comments section as well. As always, like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'm sidestepping that way because I'm going to put 2 videos on the screen right now, where if you like this little day out for us on the North Coast or the North Down coast in Northern Ireland, you might also like these videos too. We'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.